Welcome to Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, where we believe Benjamin Franklin's advice that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, both in finances and in your life. Every episode teaches you personal finance and long-term investing in simple terms. Now, here's your host, Jesse Kramer.
Welcome to Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, episode 122. I'm Jesse Kramer. By day, I work at a fiduciary wealth management firm helping clients nationwide. You can learn more at bestinterest.blog/work. The link is in the show notes. By night, I write the Best Interest blog and host this podcast. I also put out a weekly email newsletter, all of which help busy professionals and retirees avoid mistakes and grow wealth by simplifying their investing, their taxes, and their retirement planning. And happy holidays to you listening. You might be listening to this on the Wednesday of Thanksgiving Eve, or maybe on Thanksgiving itself as you drive to your Uncle Rick's house. Or heck, maybe my voice has already put you to sleep and you're enjoying your well-deserved post-turkey nap. Today, I'm welcoming Phil Pearlman back to the podcast to remind us that health and wealth are two sides of the very same coin, and that these next 5 weeks, yes, these next 5 weeks are certainly full of mirth, full of friendship and family, but they also happen to be, at least here in America, the unhealthiest period of our entire years, and Phil will share some pretty compelling data on that front. And because long-term health and long-term investing and long-term finances have so many parallels, I wanted to spend some time today talking specifically about health. But first, a quick review of the week from Sioux Falls Finest, who said, Jesse is a rock star. Recently, I listened to Jesse's explanation on Bitcoin, and for the first time, I feel like I'm getting to understand it. Not that I wanted to invest in it, LOL, but the way he explains the various topics of personal finance and goals and how to achieve those goals gives me huge motivation. Thank you, sir. Well, Sioux Falls Finest, you know the drill. Thank you very much for the kind words. I'd be happy to send you a super soft podcast t-shirt, so please drop me an email to jesse@bestinterest.blog so I can get that sent out to you. Before Phil joins us, I wanted to give you some inspirational willpower to say no to that third slice of pecan pie today or tomorrow or whenever you're listening to this. This is an article I've read here on the podcast before, but it feels right to read it again. And the article is called, Do You Have a Deeper Yes? And it comes from a podcast that I was listening to from Michael Kitces and Carl Richards, two fantastic financial planners who kind of share some wisdom on their podcast about kind of what it's like to be a financial planner, what it's like to be working with clients. And I always learn something new from them. And Carl, on one episode, asked a very compelling question. And the question's pretty simple. What's one thing that you do regularly that you'd like to stop doing? And I'd almost pause and put this on you listeners right now. What's one thing that you do regularly that you'd like to stop doing? And each of our answers will vary. It could be a destructive habit, a simple, bad, unhealthy behavior, maybe just wasting time, right? Lots of us have bad habits where we waste time that we wish we could stop doing it. And as I listened to their conversation, Carl he posited that in a very effective strategy of saying no, that it becomes much easier to say no, I should say, when you have a deeper yes. Saying no becomes much easier when you have a deeper yes. And Carl used the example of a client of his who chose not to pay for an expensive parking spot at work because, he could park close to work and he'd have to pay for that. So instead of paying for that expensive parking spot, he took the would-be parking money and he parked it, he parked it into a bank account. And then every few months, those monies would grow enough that he would pay for a family dinner at a nice restaurant. And for him, family meals at that nice restaurant were a much deeper yes than the parking pass. It made saying no to parking pretty easy in that case. And Michael Kitces and Carl Richards, they're both these celebrity financial planners, as I mentioned. So their message is certainly tailored to other financial planners like me. Early on in most planners' careers, we're incredibly excited by the opportunity to work with any clients. And I felt this acutely, potentially because I'm a latecomer to the industry and a career changer. But like all good businesses and all good business owners, we need to ask, what does my ideal client look like? For me, it's an individual or family who needs my help, right? They want to delegate their financial planning to an expert, regain more time in their own lives. They value my help. They understand the benefit of getting this stuff right and the costs of getting it wrong. It's someone who's enjoyable to be around, right? I don't want to work with jerks, and I hope my clients share that value with me. And last, it's someone who can pay for my help. The Best Interest blog, this podcast, Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, they will always be free resources. My goal is to keep these totally free resources, and I love the fact that they're free, but they survive because paying clients who meet all the criteria I just listed out, they seek me out. When readers or listeners refer people in your lives to come work with me, when people like you listening refer your friends and family to come work with me, you're making this whole enterprise possible. So I really do. I have a Venn diagram. I'll link it in the show notes. I have a Venn diagram of these 4 intersecting circles: needs my help, values my help, can pay for my help, and enjoyable to be around. And at the middle of that intersection is an ideal client. And my time and my bandwidth are finite. So if I say yes to a non-ideal client, someone outside of the center intersection, I'm exhausting my limited bandwidth. And I'll eventually run out of that bandwidth completely. And eventually I will be forced to say no to people, even when they are my perfect ideal client. So my deeper yes, for me, in this case, is my truly ideal clients. They are out there and they're worth waiting for. And while it's certainly hard to say no to people who want my help right now, it's easier to say no if I know there's a deeper yes out there, if I know that there's an ideal client out there waiting. Plus, I can refer those no's to other fiduciary fee-only advisors who have a different, deeper yes than my own. And listening to Kitsis and Carl, and at least for me too, we're applying this deeper yes idea to financial planning and to our clients. We should also apply this idea to our personal finances, and I would advocate, in the spirit of today's episode, to our health decisions. So pivoting now to your deeper yes, one of the great common frustrations in personal finance sounds something like, I wish I had more money for travel, but I guess I did spend, $17,000 on that jet ski last year. Spending money is a constant and an alluring tease, but I think it becomes easier to say no to overspending when you have a deeper yes. And we can apply some sort of bimodal spending to our lives and to our mindset there. We either have spending that totally lights us on fire and it's the best money we could spend in the world, or we try hard not to spend it. It's just like we're spending money, I should say, maybe on the bare bones essentials that just keeps life functioning. We pay for our living space, we pay for food, we pay for transportation, the basics. Or we're spending money on the most amazing things possible. And I would say there's nothing wrong with spending that money on the jet ski, like in the example I just gave. But do you have a deeper yes that might steer you away from that spending? And if you don't know that deeper yes, I think we should try to discover it right now. To discover your most meaningful spending, I would say that you ask yourself the following questions, and some of these questions are going to resonate a lot. Some might not resonate at all with you, and you can build your own list and eventually even build a Venn diagram like the one that I mentioned to see which of your spending decisions and maybe which of your health decisions fall into your ideal intersection where these circles overlap. So I'll get going on the questions now. Number 1, what are your core values? Number 2, which expenditures align with those values? Number 3, which purchases bring you the most joy or satisfaction? Number 4, what spending do you most regret? 5, which expenses contribute to your long-term goals? 6, how do these expenditures improve your quality of life? 7, what are your essential expenses? 8, are there any non-essential purchases that still hold significant meaning to you? 9, what are you sacrificing to make certain purchases? 10, would reallocating funds to other areas better align with your values and goals? 11, do you value experiences over material goods or vice versa? 12, what experiences have been most memorable and fulfilling? 13, how does your spending affect your relationships? 14, does your spending contribute to causes that you care about? 15, which purchases do you consistently make? 16, have your spending patterns changed over time? 17, how does your spending support your personal growth? And 18, what purchases have had a lasting impact on your own personal development? Now, if you want all 18 of those questions again, I suggest you check out the show notes, bestinterest.blog/do you have a deeper yes? We'll put the link there if you want to read the article for yourself. Because I would submit that once you discover your deeper yes, it becomes easier to say no to other spending. It would sound something like, I can't buy the jet ski because I'm taking my family to Portugal next summer, and that is a deeper yes for us. It's like that Henry David Thoreau quote from Walden that, if you didn't already know it, in the movie Dead Poets Society made it pretty famous. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life, living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put route to all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shade close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms, and if it proved to be mean, why then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it, and publish its meanness to the world, or, if it were sublime, to know it by experience and be able to give a true account of it in my next excursion. The part that most people think of is that I wish to live deliberately, to suck out all the marrow of life, and to not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. That's the part of the poem that most people remember, and the idea there is to, in our case, spend deliberately, or eat deliberately, make choices deliberately, to put route to all the no's or the negatives in your life, and to look for the deeper yeses. And if that plan proves to be mean, as Thoreau would say, then report back about that meanness. But I predict that you'll find it sublime, and you'll be able to give a true account of such wise spending to the rest of us. And I would also submit that when it comes to the health choices in our life, we can put route and we can make easier no's. We can make the decision to say no easier if we have a deeper yes. And by cutting out all the things that we want to say no to, by putting route to them, right, then we will have a more deliberate, health-conscious life. Here's a quick ad, and then we'll get back to the show. I send a free weekly email to thousands of readers that shares 2 simple things, just 2. The first are my new articles and podcasts, so you'll never miss when I publish new content. And the second is my favorite financial content from other corners of the internet, so you can see what's been helping me the most.
But Jesse, I don't want another email.
I hear you. I make this newsletter short, sweet, and full of essential information, and readers enjoy that. About 85% of newsletter subscribers are engaging with the newsletter more than once a month. They're enjoying it, and you will too. You can subscribe for free on the homepage at bestinterest.blog, and you'll get a free PDF of my white paper titled The Step-by-Step Guide to Building Your Retirement Paycheck. That's right, a free weekly email that thousands of people like you are already reading, a free white paper to help you plan for retirement, and you can sign up for free at bestinterest.blog. With that, I think we should kick things over to Phil Pearlman. Phil has a doctorate in psychology. He used his knowledge to spend most of his career in the behavioral finance world of Wall Street. But more recently, he created the Pearl Institute, and he's dedicated his life to helping people optimize their well-being. That is his calling. Phil's an expert in the areas of personal health and effective processes of change, and as you'll hear today, a true teacher by nature. So without any further ado, here is Phil Pearlman. Well, Phil, last time you were here, episode 79, we learned all about some of the cool overlaps between investing and health. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that again today. But because this is December now, I thought we would have a little bit of a holiday twist to today's topic, today's conversation. But maybe we can rewind the clock a little bit and start with some of the basics. Because one of the things I remember from working with you, I remember these 4 pillars that you kind of think about and focus on when it comes to our health journeys. A lot of people, I think, diet and exercise. I know you added 2 more in there, but do you mind just starting there with kind of these 4 main focus areas that you focus on in this simple health concept?
First of all, Jesse, let me just say it's great to see you. Really nice to talk to you. It's
Thanks,
always a
man.
pleasure.
Likewise.
I wish that I had Jesse's girl. The whole thing. It's beautiful. So let me just tell you. So, the Greeks had 4 elements of the physical universe, right? And now we look back at that as being so quaint and simple. They had earth, wind, fire, water, right? 4 elements. Now we have all these different Californian and, like these different, all these elements we know. The periodic table. But back then they had 4 elements. And, unless you are a chemist, those 4 elements go a very long way. And there are 4 elements of good health too. And you can read all the books you want. There's like 10 million blog posts. There's 10,000 books. But really, if you understand the 4 elements of health and just have a basic idea, you can get yourself very healthy. And those include nutrition, the food that you put into the only body that you're ever issued. That's number 1. Number 2 is exercise, movement, moving your body, working up a sweat sometime, lifting things that are heavy sometimes and building your muscles up. Number 3 is sleep and rest. That's how we rejuvenate our body. That's how we rebuild after we've spent ourselves, after we've run around. Maybe we've gone for a jog. Maybe we've done some weightlifting. That's how we rejuvenate. And also our brain, it's how we rest and rejuvenate our brain. And then the last one nobody ever talks about, and that is love and community and belonging. Family and those types of elements are incredibly important to our thriving and our health span, staying healthy for a long time. You get those 4 going. And if you're just starting out or you're not in shape or you're not feeling great, even if you just start with 1, And you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start walking in the morning, and then I'm going to go for a jog. And then what happens is they compound, and they begin to, the more you start exercising, well, the better you start sleeping, right? And then the better you're sleeping and the more you're exercising, the more your body is craving nutritious foods, and you start learning about that. So there really is a sort of a compounding effect or a cumulative effect. But really, if you just focus on those four things, nutrition, body movement, exercise, sleep and rest, and love and family and community, you really can get yourself super healthy without having to learn big words like mitochondria and VO2 max and isomeres and telomeres and all those kinds of things.
I fell over the other day, and I think I actually twisted my telomeres, but maybe not. No, it strikes me, though, when you're talking about the cumulative effect of these four pillars, that maybe you should rewind the clock a little bit. And I mean, you've got a really interesting health story of your own, right? I mean, I remember you telling me about, like, maybe it's like where you found yourself health-wise in like that 40 to 45-year-old age range, something like that. And then you've been on this health journey ever since. But I mean, could you remind me of those details?
Yeah, we have an epidemic in this country. We have a health epidemic. People don't take good care of themselves. We have a huge amount of highly processed foods, an incredibly high percentage of the average U.S. adult's diet is super processed foods. We don't get enough protein. We eat way too many processed and high carbohydrate foods. And as a result, we are not only obese in the aggregate, but we have high blood pressure, we have high blood sugar levels, we have all types of signs of poor metabolic health. And so myself, when I was a kid, I was an athlete. When I was young, I was an athlete. And the older I got, the further and further away I got from that. The less exercise, the more crap I put into my body, including, and in my case, including alcohol and drugs. And so I'm just such an addict. It's a comedy. Like if there was an addict scale, you could just like plug in a thing and get a reader, I would be like, woo, 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 like super high on the addict thing. And for years and years, pot, alcohol, cigarettes, sweet foods, cookies, cakes, all kinds of things. And I was big and I was in very poor shape. I was probably, 50, 60 pounds heavier. And I was struggling to get healthy, but I really didn't have all the pieces together. I was like fighting myself. Like I would do like healthy things and then I would do like unhealthy things. And I was really fighting myself. And finally, it really sort of came to a head, literally. I was in this mode where I was kind of fighting. As a matter of fact, I ran my first half marathon when I was still using. And there's an old photo from like 8 years ago where I was with my kid. My kid was a runner. And I did not look that healthy, but I just plowed through the half marathon slowly. Now, 8 years later, I'm 58, I can run it much faster, more than a minute a mile faster than I could then. But I was just battling it. And then I was really trying to quit. I was trying to get healthy. It was like back 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 5 steps forward, 7 steps back. And finally, I went out one night. I don't know if I even told you this story.
I didn't know about it. I know the story because you wrote a great little post about it. That was the first time I heard this story. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. On my 6th. And what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to help people. And so I try to do whatever I can to get people to motivate people, to inspire people. So I wrote this post on my 6th anniversary of being sober from alcohol and pot. I wrote a story about it. I went out one night with a buddy of mine who lives in Brooklyn. I was going to crash at his place. He moved since, but lived in Brooklyn with his wife and his dog. And we went out to see Shabaka Hutchins, which is some like avant-garde British jazz music. Wild. We were just partying from early in the evening and we were just wrecked. Get back to his place. We go up on the roof and we're still drinking and smoking. And I just fell on my head, hit my head, passed out, boom. And the next thing I remember, I'm sitting on his couch and there's like paramedics there and they're like trying to get me to go to the hospital or whatever. And I'm like, no, man, I'm all right. I'm good. I was ready for a bong hit, And it was like, no, I didn't go. And that was the last time that I ever partied. Like, I got with my wife, I had a great doctor, got with him, and I just quit at that point. It was like a light bulb went off. And instead of me fighting myself, I just sort of gave up. Like, I just sort of let go of a lot of crap. A lot of like, hey, I got to do this, keep up with the Joneses, party one more time. It's always that one more party. And I just gave it up. I was just like, you know what? I'm done. And I just started doing a lot of things for myself and my family that were healthier. And I just started eating good foods, started moving my body. That part of me that was an athlete came back to me. Like I was an athlete. Like that's who I was. And you know what? It's who I still am. Mm-hmm. And it really came back to me. And I feel closer to the 12-year-old Phil than I've ever felt before. Because it's like that 12-year-old Phil who's like, go out and go up to the schoolyard and race his buddies. That's still inside me. That's like still who I am.
Well, no, thanks for sharing, Phil. And it sucks that you had to go through that rock bottom moment in a way, right? But at the same time, there's this silver lining because I'm looking at you now and how healthy you are now. And of course, there's a silver lining to that rock bottom. Just like, for some of the conversations with listeners who have a rock bottom in their finances before turning things around, or just other aspects of life. And so you were able to quit using cold turkey. And not to make light of the moment, but speaking of turkey, I think we can pivot back to the holiday conversation now because I hear your story.
Well done.
The 4 pillars. And I think when most people think of health around the holidays, immediately they think diet, right? That is the pillar that they think of. Maybe that's my own bias. And so I'm just curious, when in the conversations you have, even in your own personal life when it comes to health around the holidays, is diet the thing that you're focusing most on? Or just give us maybe some of your general thoughts about health around the holidays to start.
Okay, so to set the context, we all know, and I'm assuming that we have sort of an advisor, financy crowd here. And so I would think that most of us are pretty familiar with seasonality in markets. Sell in May and go away, Jeff Hirsch and the Stock Trader's Almanac, and that whole thing. And there's different months of the year that are stronger than others. There's different seasons of the year that are, and even taking into account the election cycles. And there's a whole science to that. And Hirsch is kind of the man on that, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of great work there. And there's also a seasonality to metabolic health and a seasonality to weight gain. And as it turns out, and this makes such intuitive sense, and I'll go into a couple of the reasons or what we think are the reasons, but from about the week of Thanksgiving to the week of New Year's Day, we gain all of the weight that we gain during the year, during that window. From, like mid-late November 20th, whenever, depending on when Thanksgiving is, to like Jan 1, Jan 2, we gain not only all of the weight that we gain for the year, we gain more weight than we gain all year. So in other words, from January to November, we have a tendency to drop a little bit of weight. But we gain so much weight during this window that as a tendency, up until the time we're about 60, 65, as adults, we tend to gain on average, and these are means, these are not individuals, every individual is different, we tend to gain about 1 to 2 pounds a year as adults in America, which is profound. Like over 10 years,
right,
that's 15, 20 pounds that you gain. And over 20 years, it could be 30, 40 pounds that you gain during this period. And so what Jeff Hirsch would say is that, seasonality a lot of times is not that big a deal if the market is just doing what it usually does during the seasons. Like if September is a wonky month and it's choppy and maybe it's down a little bit, it doesn't give you that much information because September is usually a wonky month. And if December is a strong month and November is a strong, November, December are strong months, well, they tend to be strong months. So it's not that big a deal. But when you have a period of the year in the market when it goes against the seasonality, that's, what Jeff Hirsch would tell you is that signal. That's when you're getting information. Like we just had a strong September and we've had a strong year. And now we're having and we're taping this a little bit earlier. So if we crash, I'm taking a mulligan on this conversation, but I'm assuming we're not going to crash. I'm assuming I'm going to take the risk. I'm assuming we're going to have a strong into the end of the year. And what that September that was a stronger September than usual was telling you was that, hey, this market's stronger than it usually is. So it's when we're not conforming to the seasonality of markets that you're getting important information. The same exact thing is true in terms of our health. So how do we go through this time of year right now, December, we're watching this in December. How do we go through right now going the other way? Maybe losing a pound or two, maybe staying very healthy. I'm going to get into that in 1 second. There was just one more thing. You asked about nutrition and what are the factors. And I gave the 4 elements. And they're all very important and they all go together. But if you put a gun to my head and I had to choose one, it would be nutrition. There's no doubt about it. Nutrition is so critical.
Is that in general, Phil, or you're saying especially during this time of year?
It's always, always, always.
Yeah.
You can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. I mean, unless you're like serious marathoner. I mean, a guy like Kipchoge can eat whatever he wants, but guess what? He's running 100 miles a week. Doesn't matter. He's burning everything, right? But me and you, and even people, like I'm running a good amount a week, 25 miles a week, 25 miles a week. But even me, if I go on a bender, even a day or two, I notice it, and I'm very sensitive to it, but I notice it. But people, if they're not eating well, even if they're exercising, so let's put nutrition at the top. And if we were to assume, we don't know for a fact, but we can make some assumptions about why people gain weight. Well, there's all kinds of parties. There's office party, there's Christmas parties, there's Thanksgiving is ridiculous. Your Aunt Dolores brings over, you have an apple pie, you have a pumpkin pie, you have pecan pie with the ice cream.
Pecan pie, baby.
And then your Aunt Dolores brings over a pecan pie. So there's 2 pecan pie. Glorious, but it's gluttonous at the same time.
Yeah.
It's glorious and gluttonous. And so we just eat and then we drink more than we usually do. And we drink rich, wintry drinks. That's one reason why it's just obvious that it's one thing. And then the second thing is more of an evolutionary thing. And that is that it gets cold in the winter. And so our bodies, we have this sort of natural tendency to want to just plump up a little bit during the colder months as a layer of protection from the cold. Put in insulation in your house, you're like insulating yourself. So that's a kind of possible causal rationale. But anyway, the tendency is, so if we can go against the seasonality of weight gain, if we can stay steady or maybe lose a pound or two during this traditional weight gaining period, we are really making that a signal. That is telling us that we may be on to something. We may be on to a set of habits or a system or a lifestyle or a self-concept that runs counter towards this obesogenic culture that I described before, that, 70% of the people, over 70% of the people in this country are either overweight or obese, and metabolic illness is running rampant. And there are some good new drugs out there, Ozempic and so forth, but they don't agree with everybody and they have side effects and they're expensive. And so you just can't say, hey, just go take a pill or go take a shot in this case. And so there are things you go. So to your point before, you start with what you put in, the only body that you ever get. You get this one body. When it's all used up, guess what? I'm sorry, there's no mulligans when it comes to your life. There's no mulligans. It's used up, you're done, you're dead, Jack. We all go sometime. You want to go as far out into the future as possible, and you want to be as healthy for as long as possible.
Here's a quick ad, and then we'll get back to the show. Serious question. Why do podcasters constantly ask for ratings and reviews? Yes, they do help highlight our shows to new listeners. They help strangers find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's totally true and a good reason to ask for ratings and reviews. But I have something more important, at least more important to me. I want to know if you like this stuff. I want to know if you like my podcast episodes, my monologues, my guests, the information I share with you and the stories I tell. I want to improve and make your listening more enjoyable in the process. So yeah, I would love to read your reviews. And sure, if you throw a rating in there too, that's great. If you like what I'm doing, please share it with me. It's such a great feeling to read your feedback. I'd love to read your review or see a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you. When we were kind of working together and talking more frequently, I was having a pretty good, I was on a good streak, right? I was building some pretty good habits into my life. And I called you because I was flying out to Palm Springs, California to one of my friend's bachelor parties. And I was like, hey man, I've got all these good things going. I'm building up some really good habits. And I'm about to go into a weekend of snack food and ordering pizza and beers available at 10 a.m. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, kind of had a couple questions for you at the time. And they're related in a way. And the first one was, do you have wiggle room for cheating in your health structure, as in like a cheat meal or something like that, some sort of flexibility? But then the second one, and maybe this is what we can focus on right now, is I was thinking to myself, what can I proactively think about doing? What can I plan ahead of this trip? What can I commit to that allows me to feel like I'm partaking, but still keeps my health a priority? And so as we go into the holidays, my question for you right now is, we don't want people to say, I know it's after Thanksgiving when this comes out, but we don't want people to say, hey, you got to skip Thanksgiving dinner. Sorry, man. We want people to feel like they're partaking, but at the same time, what's a good framework for setting some limits or just proactively thinking about keeping our health top of mind?
This is a process and a journey for each person. And we are all scientists, and we are all the subjects of the scientific experiment. We are chief scientists and the sole subject of an important scientific experiment. So we learn more and more about ourselves as we go along. It's not just one day, one event, one Thanksgiving, one New Year's Eve. And so it may take some time to get to a place where habitually you're behaving in a way that promotes your good health rather than detracts from your good health. And I say that to say small steps in the right direction are great. We're not going all or none necessarily. Some people do. Some people come to me and will walk through it and they go, oh, okay. And they start doing those things. But those are the fraction of people. Usually people have baggage, they have a history, they have issues with their body or with the way that they perceive themselves, and it becomes a journey. Rare cases, it's not. It's just like this. And by the way, some people never go on the journey at all. I'm sad to say. Some people just, maybe it's just me that I'm not perfect at helping people, but some people just aren't going to get there. Like, I hate to say it. I wish it weren't true. Breaks my heart. But anyway, most people have a journey. Take, for example, this coming holiday season. There is low-hanging fruit. There's places to begin, right? We don't have to be militant. We can be, but we don't have to be. But the best place to start is alcohol consumption, because it's so bad. And a lot of our poor nutrition is cultural. I remember being 9 years old. I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons. Tony the Tiger comes on. He's selling me Frosted Flakes. He's like my freaking dope dealer, like he's selling me crack for 9-year-olds is Frosted Flakes. Boom, right to my skull. And I'm like, Mom, I want Frosted Flakes. And so the next day it's like, they're great. And I'm eating Frosted Flakes. And if you look at Frosted Flakes, it's poison. And I would go out and run around and I would burn a lot of it off. But the precedent that it was setting, the habits that it was putting into place was really, really bad. The worst thing is the alcohol. And the alcohol is the same way. The commercials for alcohol have just been as bad. I mean, the one that I really, really remember was Billy D. Williams. Was like the coolest guy in the world. I'm stamping my age on this. Billy D. Williams, the coolest guy in the world. And, he was doing like malt liquor commercials. And like the door, he would be standing at the door and he's talking to the camera. Yeah, I got malt liquor. And then this gorgeous woman comes up behind him and he like closes the door. Like, he's got the malt liquor, she's got the malt liquor, and he's about to get some, right? He's about to get a little booty call. And it was like, what's cooler than that? So we're brainwashed. And so alcohol really is not cool. Like, I hate to say it, but it's really not that cool. The Clydesdales are cool. Billy D. Williams is cool. The tequila guy, right? The Van Halen singer, the second singer for Van Halen. With people my age, he's so cool. He's selling some fancy tequila. And like people I know that are my age that are well-to-do, Cabo Wabo or whatever his tequila is, people love to drink that tequila because it's cool, but it's not really that cool. It destroys your brain. It makes you fat. It messes with your internal organs, and it destroys your metabolic health. And it causes cancer, by the way. It affects your sleep. I could go on and on, the negative effects. So the place I would start with would be alcohol consumption. That would be number one. And, if you're not going to like cut it out completely, you just say, hey, this is Christmas Eve. I'm going 2 drinks. I'm not going 7. And that week, I'm going 5 drinks. I'm not going 15 or Katie bar the door. Like, I'm just going to limit it. And by the way, as an aside, if you can't limit it, you really got a problem.
Yeah. You might need to seek some help.
You might want to seek some help. Like if you say, hey, I'm just going to have 2 tonight, you wind up having 8, you got a problem there. I mean, it's a slap. I'm slapping you in the face, just saying it, but I'm just talking reality. That would be number one. Number 2, what I would recommend is that you eat, I would call this the right foot rule. Like you get off foot in the right foot. So what I would do is I would eat a lot of high protein, natural foods to start the evening.
I still think about this one, Phil. I remember this one from us talking about it.
It's so critical. Yep. Like, as a matter of fact, I've had 1 meal so far today, and that was 6 eggs.
And it's 5:30 p.m. as we speak right now for listeners. One meal by 5:30.
About before I came on, about 4:30, about an hour ago. Before I came on, I had a half dozen eggs. That's 40 grams of protein and 400 calories, give or take. All the healthiest fats in the world and amino acids and vitamins galore. And I wasn't hungry. I'm not hungry after I do that. And then I'll have a little dinner with my family and I'll be good to go. And I'll have animal protein and vegetables for dinner. And that's that. And so if it's Thanksgiving, before you start piling into the stuffing, before you start piling into those little roll-up biscuits, that's what we make. The Pillsbury biscuits,
Pillsbury,
they disappear.
yeah.
They disappear in about 5 seconds, by the way. We make them. Gotta make them. I'm having relatives over. But they disappear in like 2 seconds. Instead of starting with those, you just get a big plate of turkey and you have a bunch of turkey. And that way, at least you started with something. So if you go off a little bit off the rails, you got a head start off on the right foot. Those are the 2 big recommendations. Limit alcohol and get off on the right foot.
I like those 2 because they're simple, right? It's not 10 different directions that are kind of complex. It's 2 simple things that we can all keep in mind. I'm kind of thinking chronologically here. So, we get through after Thanksgiving. Now we've got that holiday party season. Probably there's more opportunities to drink. And then eventually we get into Christmas cookie exchanges. I think in our office, so many people bring in food to the office. Our break room becomes a sugar factory during that 3-week period between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Eventually, though, we get to the tail end of all this. It's now January 1st, or maybe it's December 31st, and we're thinking about potentially, hopefully we're not thinking about too many unhealthy choices, but maybe we're sitting there thinking, I got to do something, and tomorrow is New Year's Eve. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on health-related New Year's resolutions. I liked what you said a few minutes ago about this is a journey. It isn't necessarily just one day the light switch flips and you go, but either way, to bring it home, what does, whether it's a New Year's resolution or just in general, a lifestyle change, a slow and steady lifestyle change, what does that plan look like going forward?
New Year's are great. Like people will sort of criticize them and say, well, why not just start today? they're great the same way that round numbers on the major averages are great. Dow 40,000 means something. It meant something when we crossed it.
Yeah.
Dow 10,000 meant something. You know, I remember like Mark Haynes having the hat back in the day on CNBC. Those round numbers mean something because that's the way our brains work. It's just as simple as that. And so the moments mean something. And birth and rebirth are mythologies, are archetypes for a really good reason, because that is important to us too. And throughout history and throughout stories, I mean, just look at the Bible. You know, we're talking about Christmas right now. Well, look, think about Easter. That's the rebirth of, you know, he has risen, right? It's the rebirth of Christ. That is like, it's built in because metaphorically, rebirth is so important to us. Mm-hmm. And we can all be reborn multiple times throughout our lives. So what I would recommend for a New Year's resolution is I would recommend that you not try to like just do everything. Hey, I'm just saying I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to stop eating ice cream. I'm going to do, you know, don't try to do it all. Just pick one thing. Pick one thing that is getting your goat. That might not even have to be the biggest, worst thing. Just one thing and go after that. Hey, I'm going to go for a walk 5 mornings a week. By the way, going for a walk in the morning outdoors is one of the healthiest things you can do in the history of the world. It affects your mood throughout the day. It gets your blood flowing. It evens your metabolism. It resets your circadian rhythm and improves your sleep, even though it's in the morning. Multiple great effects. So maybe the thing is that, hey, you know what? I'm going to start going for a walk. And maybe you go out and for Christmas, you get yourself some warm exercise clothes. Like, you know, you get a pair of like the lined leggings or whatever, and, you know, a pair of gloves that are like sleek but warm. And you get out there and you just start walking. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Because we are all, you know, we're all interconnected. Mind, body, spirit is one word. We're all interconnected. And once we start getting ourselves moving in the right direction, once we do one thing, maybe it could be to stop drinking. Like that could be one thing. Like that's a tough one. But maybe that could be that one thing. I can't recommend it enough. When I did it, it changed my whole life. So maybe I'm just biased. But now I've done a lot of research in that area. And I know how much it affects you. In fact, I have a pro bono client that I've been working with. He reached out to me when I wrote that article. And I just said, listen, we're going to talk, you know, we're going to talk a couple times a month for half an hour. And he's not in a position to pay me. And I talked to him today, and he has been sober for 3 months, almost 3 months. He's like, hey, my brain is getting clearer during the day. I'm not as foggy, and I'm able to think a bit more. It's just so it can be that. Like 2 years from now, he'll still be having effects. Like his body will still be healing, and he'll still be having positive mood effects, positive executive functioning effects, positive energy effects, positive metabolic health effects, and body weight effects, positive body weight effects. Drinking is another great one, but just getting and walking is a simple one. Hey, I'm going to walk more days than not. In the morning, get out, get fresh air. Once you do it 4 or 5 times, you're like, wow, I feel great. You get back and you're like, okay, really get some stuff done. That's what I would really recommend. I would really recommend that. If you want to go hardcore, I would definitely recommend another one would be to begin to cut out carbohydrates, and especially processed carbohydrates, because those are one way of looking at our obesity problem. A fancy term that the fancy schmancy guys use is they use this term called energy toxicity. And what they mean by that is that we're just taking in too much energy. And what do we do? And carbohydrates are energy. Fat is energy, carbohydrates are energy, and then protein is protein. That's really the two major classes of macronutrients. When you begin lowering your carbohydrates, that energy toxicity, the excessive amount of energy, because what happens when we take in too much energy, our bodies store it as fat. So that's how we get fat. We take in way too much energy. We live in this world of abundance. We could go to a restaurant and eat 3 pieces of bread before we get a pizza. how much energy toxicity is that right there in that one meal? Or you have you have 4 pieces of bread and chicken parmesan. That's a lot of energy toxicity right there. And so if you want to cut down, I would recommend Googling I'm not going to get into the details of it, but Googling low carbohydrate therapeutic diet would be something that I would highly recommend. So any one of those, doesn't have to be all 3, but just pick one that resonates with you and do that one.
That's awesome, Phil. Our bodies are temples. And as you love to say, we only get one of them, right? We only get one of them. And as much as we want to go into this year end and celebrate this holiday season, personally, I think finding that balance is huge, and health is wealth. We know these things are interconnected. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom with us. And I alluded earlier to some of your blog posts, and I know at one time you were getting behind the microphone a little bit. So I'm just not sure if you are still kind of writing or recording anything, or simply just if someone wants to reach out to you to ask you a question or to follow along with some of what you're doing, how can people find you?
Just go to philpearlman.com. I'm going to be cranking the blog back up. I took some time off. I didn't really have that much to say. Everything I've said today, I've already said before. You know what I mean? I'm putting it together in a beautiful way, and we're doing it in a really seasonal way, which is very, very nice. But a lot of these ideas, 4 months, I've written about it before. And so I'm ready to start up again. I took a little, I consolidated in a higher area, and now I'm about ready to break out again. So it's a great time to go to philpearlman.com and sign up, find the Prime Cuts blog and sign up for that. And yes, you might even see some videos from me as well.
That's awesome. We'll link it in the show notes. I follow Prime Cuts so that when you do write, I was going to say it's been a little while, but when you do write, it ends up in my inbox, and it's always worth reading.
I took the summer off. I just do, I'm just doing my thing now. I'm just, I could take the summer off.
I totally get it, man. Good for you, Phil. Well, hey, thank you again for coming on Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors.
Adios. Thank you for having me, Jesse. Appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors. If you have a question for Jesse to answer on a future episode, send him an email over at his blog, The Best Interest. His email address is jesse@bestinterest.blog. Again, that's jesse@bestinterest.blog. Did you enjoy the show? Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen. This helps others find the show and invest in knowledge themselves. And we really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next episode of Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors. Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors is a personal podcast meant for education and entertainment. It should not be taken as financial advice, and it's not prescriptive of your financial situation.